does.
What's the feeling first win down in Melbourne after you get your first win over in Perth a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, just really proud of the boys and the way that they performed. You know, I think 2 strong wins on the road for a young group is really pleasing for a coach.
Can you speak to Brodie Grundy's tactics against Tristan Xerri? Because obviously he's quite a talked about ruck in the league, important to best him or at least even with him. Grundy seemed to get really physical. Was that going in the plan?
Yeah, I think that's when Brodie plays his best footy. You know, he's an experienced ruck, and you know, obviously Tristan's been in amazing form for a couple of years. So, and he really enjoys those moments. So I think the ability to be able to play Brodie and also Pete as well. You know, I thought they performed really well. But when he's at his best, that's what he's doing.
And you're surprised by the ruthless efficiency of the team. You know, you've got so many moving parts, and yet everything just seemed to fall into place tonight.
Yeah, I was really proud of the group. It was, you know, going throughout the week, getting news about Tom, but the group, especially the young ones, and you know, we had only a couple of our leaders out there tonight, so the response that they gave was really pleasing. You know, off a bye to be able to rally and play the way that they did. Yeah, you're exactly right. That's the way I thought, to be able to, you know, obviously stop what North wanted to do, but then to be able to execute on turnover was something we probably hadn't done for the first 3 rounds. So, yeah, to their credit, it was a huge team effort, and they were up for the fight for the 4 quarters.
I think you're the 4th least points on turnover over the first few rounds. What target are you trying to hit to try and change that? And did you get what you wanted to see from that tonight?
Yeah, I think one thing also, we've played some pretty good football teams at the start of the year. When you talk Hawthorn, Brisbane and Fremantle in Perth, we wanted to first of all defend better as a team, you know, which we were able to do that. A lot of the metrics after the first 3 or 4 rounds suggested that, and then it was just about adding the next part to our game, which is the ability to be able to score off turnover. Stoppage-wise, we were pretty consistent throughout the first 3 games with scores for and against, but it's our turnover game that had dropped away. So we reviewed that during the week. We spoke about a lot of our attacking principles, and then from there, to the players' credit, they responded very well.
You have probably, Pete Adams probably not his best shot on goal at half-time. It'll get reviewed extensively. You know they're going to try and come out the second half, the counter-attack. What's going through your head when Isaac Heeney puts on what he put on in the 3rd quarter? Just cut them up. Yeah,
I think, and that's what you want your best players to do. And they sense the moment, and that's when they stand up. You know, his ability to be able to find targets out of stoppage and to get it done with a real grunt. You know, Isaac, all the way through his career, gets a lot of credit for his specky marks and his great goals, but he's a real competitor. And, you know, for him to be able to rally the troops and get it against, you know, they were probably a bit quiet in the first half. So to their credit, they responded really well.
What did you make of the game of someone like Riley Bias, who comes in and sort of slots in seamlessly across half-back? And do you see a place for him in that side when some guys like Cunningham and McInerney come back into the side?
Yeah, the way he's playing, I think he certainly warrants that. I think the thing with Riley is, ever since he got to the football club, he's wanted to learn and get as fit and as conditioned as he possibly can for AFL level. You know, he had a great season last year at Werribee. You know, to his credit, when he got here, he head down, worked as hard as he possibly could, and wanted to learn and be a sponge. And you know, he's defending well first. You know, that's the good part about the way he's playing. And then, you know, his 2-way efforts, you know, to be able to counter with the ball in hand. We know that's one of his strengths. But he's doing it both ways at the minute, which is really good.
Is there a sense that you're empowering him to take those kicks into the corridor? You know, things that you expect a Nick Blakey to do, but this third gamer is cutting back in and hitting targets like that?
Yeah, that's the way he plays. You know, we sort of speak to players about the options that they can take. Some people have a little bit more of a licence than others, and Riley's one of those. You know, to be able to execute the way he does, he sees the game really well. And for me, it's about, you know, if you see it, hit it, back yourself in. And so far, he's doing it really well.
I know it's only early April, but how big's tonight, given, and last week as well, given what they did to Melbourne here 2 weeks ago, and given your injuries, and given you
Yeah, I think we looked really closely at that Melbourne game, and also what they did against Adelaide as well for large parts. So, I'm presuming the players were under no illusion about what they're going to face tonight. And, to their credit, they took away most of what they wanted to do, and their prep, the ability to be able to execute, even for a young team, was really pleasing.
How important in that was denying North the corridor, which you did?
Yeah, I think, North, if they needed to go forward, they had to try and go around us at times. So, the ability to be able to make sure that you want to defend dangerous parts of the ground. And that's certainly one thing that we want to do is, to take away their strength. They're either a really high uncontested mark team or they're a high handball team. So the ability to put them into positions where we could execute our defence, there always needs to be work with that. But, for the most part, the players withstood.
The forward line obviously has been a constant talking point for a couple of years now, but do you think Will Hayward has kind of slid under the radar as a really important cog that people have kind of missed amongst the tools conversation?
Yeah, and I think, to Will's credit, tonight he played an unbelievable game of footy. Obviously to lead up and have shots on goal, but his defensive intent and pressure on the ball carrier to give himself multiple opportunities was really good. And he'd been he'd been a little bit quiet for the first 3 rounds. So for him to reflect over the bye, to look at his game, to work as hard as he possibly could, gets the results he does tonight. And yeah, our forward line is different, but when they all work together, they function really well. That's one thing, we want to be unpredictable when we move the ball forward.
Will you be cutting up that tackle on Cam Zohar in the fourth quarter, just as a showcase for what that effort is in the final quarter when you're up by 10 goals?
Yeah, and that's what we reward after the game. That's what we speak heavily about, is those acts that all the players do, no matter the time or the state of the game. And to Will's credit, that's what he said he was going to do, and he delivered on that.
Did you get any injuries?
No injuries at the moment, which is good.
To keep Nick Likey so quiet, for most of the game, that must have been pretty good for you.
Yeah, it was, and Tommy was unbelievable. A fair bit of it's the pressure up the ground, but some of the entries and his ability to be able to, to take a really dangerous footballer and to do what he did. He got a couple late, but for 3.5 quarters, Tom put in a fantastic effort.
Great stuff. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.